Welcome back, guys, to another Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra video. Today, as a previous rank 1 player and somebody who probably has way more hours on the game than they should, we're going to be giving you guys a guide to divine cards. And we're also going to be talking about which cards go best with which characters, and just overall how you can go ahead and build the best build for your character. So the reason you're losing isn't because of these cards, because they are game changing. These cards make or break characters. If you guys aren't running the right cards, your character is nowhere near their potential. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and follow. We have a bunch more stuff coming out. We do stream on Twitch pretty consistently right now with Gekishin Squadra. We're going to be doing that for a while as well. So make sure to check us out over there. With that being said, let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so starting off, we're going to go in the list of the first, second, and third card, because the way divine cards work is throughout the match, you'll get energy, which you'll get from taking the same way that you do everything else. You get it from killing minions, you get it from enemies, taking towers. That'll give you your divine card energy, which you can use to go ahead and choose these cards. You can also use it to go ahead and replace these cards if you want, maybe pick up the wrong card, or maybe because the game changed and you need to kind of change your build accordingly to the game, because that's something that can matter. These are essentially items in this game that other MOBAs have. In other MOBAs, you can build items to empower your characters. In this game, we have cards. These are essentially simpler items when you compare them to other MOBAs. If you've played League before, this divine card right here is essentially what's sort of the occult or Magi Soul Stealer. That's what this is. So if you played League before, that's essentially what this system is. This is the item system, but it's much simpler, but it still has just as big of an impact as item systems do in every other game. Outside of Divine Card Energy, the other thing is too, you can only pick them in order. You can't just go first, third, and then second. You always be first, second, and then third. So that'll accordingly power spike your character. Especially early game, you want to really leverage getting farm, because if you get better farm than your opponent, you'll get your first divine card before them, and getting your first divine card at either second and your third is a big power spike compared to enemies who might only have one or two or three. Once they get to three, obviously you guys are going to be equal, but once you get to the first and second one before them, that is a major power spike. That's how you can really leverage your lane. That being said, let's go ahead and start talking about the cards themselves, beginning with a Lightning Swift. The way that this divine card works is that whenever you use your vanishing step, which right now by default is your F key, it's essentially the flash of this game if you played League. Again, we're going to be using a lot of League references because that's the game I am most familiar with. That is what got me into the Gekishin Squadra. So whenever you use your vanishing step, which is your F, your next ability within the 2 seconds will do an additional burst of damage. So you really want to use this on characters that leverage needing their vanish to get in and out, not as much characters that need vanish to go ahead and escape. For example, let's go ahead and take a look at the roster here and talk about the characters that do want to use Flash Lightning. Goku is one that can, because what you can do with Goku is you can Flash Lightning and then use Hammer Fist. That'll do a massive chunk of damage. So that is one way that you can go ahead and use it with Goku. Vegeta, not as much of a Flash Lightning character because he usually wants to save his vanish to go ahead and run away, not as much to go ahead and be aggressive with it. But you can still make it work. You can do Flash Lightning into his AoE, and that'll go ahead and do a good chunk of damage. Krillin, another character that doesn't really leverage Flash Lightning because a lot of Krillin's damage will come from his bombs. And doing Flash Lightning into bombs, it does take a while because the bombs need to settle. So it's not the most optimal choice for him, as well as even his Scatter Shot. You could do Flash Lightning into ult, but that is a very risky because it's a very obvious play, so that it'll be very easy for them to dodge that. Piccolo, another character that doesn't use it because he wants to use his vanish to escape. Gohan could make use of it, but Gohan typically want to go for a more defensive build just because of the way his kit is, not as much an offensive one. Dabura is a perfect Flash Lightning candidate because he likes to use the Flash in conjunction with his skill. That is one of the combos that he does have available to himself with skill 1 right here. Is you're an unavoidable attack that causes damage, and if activated immediately after a vanishing step, so that is literally telling you run Flash Lightning, it will reduce the attack activation. So Dabura is a perfect Flash Lightning candidate. Zamasu is another really good Flash Lightning user because he's able to Flash Lightning into skill 1 or skill 2 or skill 3. All of his skills can make use of Flash Lightning, and he doesn't need to hold his vanish to escape because he has his other dash. Kale, much not a Flash Lightning user, but she can work really well with it too because in Berserk mode, whenever you use your dash, that'll activate your Flash Lightning. And then even in base mode, you can use Flash Lightning to go ahead and engage with Kale. But that is going to be very risky because then she has no tools to protect herself. So that in base form, it's not as good for her, but in her transform state, it is very good for her. Daima Goku, very solid flash lightning user because you can go ahead and throw his bomb down, then flash lightning and pop the bomb, and it'll go ahead and do a massive chunk of damage with both of those things combined. Baby, again, not a flash lightning user because he wants to be more defensive. Oob, perfect flash lightning user right here. He has so many dashes, so giving him even more dashes and flash lightning just where it works super well. 17 can also work with flash lightning. We do build 17 for an offensive build because you don't really need to build him for defense because he has so much in his kit already. The flash lightning is very, very good for him because you can just flash lightning and then use his long range skills. And since he has so much defense and he has a dash built into his kit, you don't necessarily need to save advantage for defense either. Flash lightning cooler, very strong as well. You just flash lightning into his AoE. And Gammas can also make very good use of flash lightning because their skills have a lot of travel. So you can just flash lightning into travel and you don't need to save their skills to survive it because you can switch between the two Gammas and you also have dashes on both skill 1 and skill 2. Cell is not a great flash lightning user because without his dashing from his vantage step, he does not have like any mobility. So you don't typically want to use the flash lightning offensively on him. Hit though can work very well with flash lightning, but I would prefer to do other things with him because Hit typically wants to just like burst people outside of a bush or outside of his invisibility. He does not want to be flashing out of the bush or flashing in the bush and then using a skill to pop flash lightning. That is very awkward. Do not run flash lightning on Boop. He is a defensive unit. Frieza is also not a flash lightning user. Bojack also not a flash lightning user. Caulifla can be a flash lightning user, but it's not her best build. Trunks, perfect flash lightning user. Doesn't need it to get away, and he can use it to engage. And same thing with AT. She's a very, very good flash lightning user. Those things work very well with both of their kits. Now, the first thing you want to consider, which is a very big decision, is are you winning the game hard enough to take Super Snowball? Super Snowball is a very, very strong dividing card. This scales very heavily into the games. Essentially what this does is every time you get a kill or an assist on an enemy hero, this will give you an all attack up. This will buff your energy based attacks and your physical based attacks. And you can have up to 4 stacks of this. And at 4 stacks, it is very strong. However, if you lose and you get killed, you will lose all these stacks. Now, 4 stacks is not very hard to get because it's just, you just get 1 double kill or 1 quadra kill, 2 double kills. It'll go ahead and get you your stacks back. So it's not the hardest thing to restack it. So for characters like the ones we talked about where flash lightning is not good for them, but they still want to build for damage, like somebody like Hit, you can go ahead and build Super Snowball because Hit is a very safe character because of his mobility. You can go ahead and take Super Snowball on him because you're able to stay safe and just stack this up and get massive value out of the attack bonus that it does give. And Super Snowball, the way the card is designed, you can go ahead and really run this on any character in the game if you want to build them for damage. This is a go-to like damage build kind of card where no matter what character you're playing, you can go ahead and run that and you will get value out of it. As long as you are being cautious and safe and making sure you're managing not losing your stats. So you don't really need to worry about like which specific characters can make use of Super Snowball because almost every character can make use of it. It's just not always the best build on every character because some characters don't want to be built for damage. Now, if you're playing a tank character like Cooler, Zamasu, Vegeta, build up is a very big defensive buff. This will give you a stack of all defense, energy and physical based, every 2 kills you get on either enemies for every assist or even just NPCs. So even if you're just farming, you kill 20 NPC farms and that'll go ahead and give you your build up stacks. This is very good because if you get this stacked up, which is very, very easy to do, this will essentially give you all of the defense you could possibly need throughout the match. You don't need to take anything else for defense if you just take build up. So that is something that is very strong. You can run this on any character that wants some bulk. You can also run this on some DPS characters like Piccolo, but Piccolo has better options for cards, so you don't typically want to run that for him. For characters that I would say you can use build up on effectively, Goku is one, because of Goku being a melee range character, build up can work very well for him, giving him a little bit of extra bulk throughout the fights. But you can also just build full DPS Goku and just stay in the back, which is the way I like to play him. I think that's his best build. Alright guys, mid-video switch up here actually. We're going to just go ahead and go through all the cards first, explain how they work, and what kind of like situations are best to use them. And then we're just going to go into every single character and talk about what their best card build is, in my opinion. We're only going to talk about their best, and we'll give you like some alternative options, but that's how we're going to do this one. So let's build up Easy Life, or 2 Easy now is what it's called. It will give you extra HP for 2 seconds. It has a 30-second cooldown, and the condition to make it pop is you have to be under 50% HP. This is a very good card for burst characters, so if you're playing somebody like Piccolo, you're constantly getting dove by an Android 18 or Trunks, they're constantly trying to assassinate you, then you would want to take 2 Easy to help go and give you that extra little bit of HP to throw off their burst. So that will be very, very strong. It's kind of like just a burst of HP whenever you get under that 50% HP, and that is a strong anti-dive card that you can take if you're constantly dying to somebody diving you. Now we have Strategic Escape, which does give you a slight movement speed buff, and the only condition for this is to have your back turned to the enemy hero. This is really strong on characters like Gohan and Frieza that are constantly trying to run away from characters, because usually with Gohan and Frieza, what you try to do is you're going to go ahead and try to take towers, and then run away when they try to come stop you. So if you're trying to play that playstyle, this is a perfect card for that. On the same note though, Gekishin High is a very, very strong card. This shortens the cooldown of the activated skill whenever you land a Gekishin burst. So whenever you're taking a tower, when you pop those skills, they have a pretty decent amount of cooldown. But when you pop this skill in conjunction with those skills while you're doing the tower, it's like a 60 to 80% cooldown reduction on it. So you're able to spam through that tower very, very quickly if you have Gekishin High. So if you want to play for towers, you 100% want to be taking Gekishin High, because it'll give you a massive boost to the overall damage you can put out on towers. If left alone in a lane with Gekishin High, you can pretty much solo 2 towers very quickly. This is a very, very big card here, Giant Slayer. If you guys are having trouble killing tanks, it's probably because your DPS is not taking Giant Slayer. Giant Slayer gives you a massive damage buff that scales in proportion with the enemy's HP, and this activates whenever you attack a character that has 80% or more HP. So if their tank is full HP, you pop this, your Giant Slayer will activate. This gives a massive amount of damage buff. If you're having trouble killing the enemy tank, or the enemy tank is very, very strong, even if you're playing technical, you can go ahead and take Giant Slayer on Krillin, on Ender 17. But if you're having trouble killing the enemy tank, or they're the priority target that you need to take out, 100% you should be taking Giant Slayer. If you're not taking Giant Slayer in that situation, you're very much so throwing. Now, the other thing to consider here is Prepare to Die, which gives you a slight damage buff on the enemy hero until the end of the confrontation, and the effect is greatly boosted if the target lasts at least 2 seconds. This is really good for prolonged fights, especially for characters that don't like just one-shot people. This is somebody like Oob, because Oob doesn't typically one-shot people, he does a lot of DPS. This is going to activate whenever you attack hits an enemy hero that has 50% or less HP. But then the problem with this is that it doesn't carry over to other targets. So it'll only work against that target. And the other thing, the way you can tell if your cards are active is above your character's HP bar, it'll say like, it'll have a card image, and then it'll say 1, 2, or 3. If any of your cards are active, that's how you'll know. So if your second slot card is active, it'll say card with a 2 on it. That means your Giant Slayer or your Prepare to Die is active. That is another way you can tell that. But that is why Prepare to Die is usually not that good, is just because it doesn't carry over to other characters. Whereas with this one, you're constantly going to be doing extra damage as long as you started the fight with them having more HP. The next card to take a look at here is Steel Skin. This is a very strong card. Whenever you take an attack, you basically just reduce damage a set amount per hit. This is essentially just you getting damage reduction. Any piece of damage you take, you're going to be taking less than you would otherwise. Very, very solid if you're trying to build like a full tank build. If your tank is a character that doesn't really do damage, like if you're not playing Solar Cooler, like if you're playing somebody like Zamasu, for Zamasu, I would definitely go for a full defense build with like build up, Steel Skin, and then probably like Guardian Angel. But if you're playing somebody like Vegeta, Cooler, and or Cell, you want to probably not take this because you already get enough defense from build up. So on those characters, yeah, I'd say we're probably just take either this one or this one. But this is a very simple card, just set damage reduction every hit, and you get massive value out of that. Now, Solid Barrier is one of the most OP cards in the entire game. A lot of people did not know that for a very long time. Essentially, what this does is if you don't take damage for 10 seconds, you will get a shield. And that shield, whenever you do take damage from an enemy hero, for the first 2 seconds of them trying to do damage to you, they essentially do like 80% reduced damage. you have this barrier up, you can take a Krillin ult to the face and take basically no damage. That was one of the things that caught me off guard when I first fought somebody using it, was I Krillin ulted them while the barrier was up and they took no damage, just straight up healed through it. So it is a very, very strong card, and it is incredibly annoying, so you do have to play around it. So keep that in mind. But if you see somebody with a barrier around them and they're taking solid barrier, when you're initiating them, don't use all of your combo in the first 2 seconds, because that you want to wait for this barrier to go down before you use your combo. Otherwise, you're gonna just do no damage. Now, I would say these two are probably the worst cards in the game, so you should never take these. But there is certain situations where you can. To start off with Art of Decoy here, you get a big boost to your movement speed and it reduces your vanishing step cooldown for 4 seconds, and this can be activated every 10 seconds whenever you get obstructed by an enemy hero. What this means is essentially if you're trying to run and somebody like blocks you or stuns you, then you go ahead and have this activated. So like let's say you're playing Frieza, you're running away from like tower right here, right? This is you as Frieza, you're running, and then the enemy Goku like comes out of nowhere and he just does that. Then this will activate and you'll get a massive chunk of boot and bonus movement speed. This is for playstyles where you're trying to take tower and just run away. That is for the Frieza Gohan playstyle. That's where you can go ahead and make use of this. Now, Epic Hunter is essentially you get boost of damage to bosses for 4 seconds. The effect gets cancelled once the last boss who meets the activation condition is KO'd. And this just activates whenever you deal damage to a boss with 50% or less HP. This is very good if you need help securing bosses. However, a lot of the time you don't need to take this because most characters that have a secure will be able to just go ahead and use their secure from half HP and it'll kill them. Things like Piccolo Ultimate, one of the best secures in the game, Goku Spirit Bomb, Zamasu's Ultimate, Cooler doesn't really have much of one, he only has his ult, but it's not like a burst of damage. Secures are typically skills that do a massive burst of damage, like Trunks' skill 1, Trunks' ultimate. It's skills like that. So that is why you typically don't want to take this card, is because your character typically will already have something, or somebody on your team will already have something built in that'll help you take bosses, so you don't need to leverage this card as much. And it's usually a wasted slot, especially compared to it being in the same tier as Solid Barrier, Giant Slayer, and Steel Skin. Those are very, very strong cards. Now we are on the third card here, and before we continue, I do want to preface this. Just because a card is in tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 does not mean that it's better than a card in tier 2 or tier 3. If that makes sense. It doesn't matter what tier the card's in, all cards are relative. It's just a matter of them having certain slots available to them. Just because a card is in tier 2, that doesn't automatically mean it's a stronger card than something in tier 1. But it just all is very situational, which is why we'll get into when we get into character builds. Wicked Warrior is essentially just a rush attack boost. It ends 4 seconds after the end of a rush attack on an enemy hero. And to activate it, you just need to land 3 rush attacks in a row on an enemy hero. Once it's active, obviously you'll see a thing above your health bar that'll say card and 3 on it. That's how you know this is up. And this is very good for characters that just, rush attack a lot. Characters like Piccolo that are, their damage, their DPS comes from rush attacking, not as much their skills. This is very good for them. However, the thing about Wicked Warrior is that it's for DPS, whereas Pursuer is essentially a flash lightning that just works different. So what Pursuer does is it does additional damage to the target and boosts your movement speed for 7.5 seconds when heading towards a target. So it's very good for chasing people down. And this can be activated up to once every 7.5 seconds. So that movement speed buff lasts until you can proc it again. All you have to do to make it happen is land an attack on an enemy hero with 2 skills within 2 seconds. So if you're playing like Goku, you hammer fist into Kamehameha, that'll activate your Pursuer. It'll do a massive chunk of damage. It'll give you your movement speed. You can go ahead and just chase people down. This is a very, very strong card if you use it correctly. This is super, super strong. The movement speed buff makes it very hard for people to get away. Also very strong in characters like even Cooler if you're trying to chase people down. Guardian Angel is one of the best defensive divine cards in the game. All that you have to do for this card to activate is stay near an ally and this will activate. And what it does is some of the damage that the ally takes will be transferred to you, and the damage taken will be reduced when more allies are nearby. So if you have like 3 people near you, you'll take a little bit of damage for all 3 of them, but you also reduce that damage because you have more people. So very, very strong card, makes it very good to be able to take for your team. Perfect for characters like Baby and Zamasu. Even characters like Gohan can get very good value out of this. The other defensive card for tier 3 is Defense Step, which reduces damage from the enemy heroes for 3 seconds. This effect is greatly boosted for super attacks, and the amount of damage reduced by the effect increases over time. So what you want to do with this is you want to pop your Vanish Step right before you get hit by like a massive ultimate. A lot of ultimates in this game will cover the entire screen, and it's very hard to get out of them. So defense step gets a lot of value because the moment that ultimate's about to hit you, because a lot of the time it will, since it's covering the full screen, you can just go ahead and pop defense step and take massively reduced damage. So that's essentially how you want to use this card, and it's a very strong defensive option for a solo tank kind of situation. Not as much for like if you're trying to play for your team. That's where you would want to take Guardian Angel. Now, Backstab is a very insane skill that a lot of people use. So what Backstab does is it'll greatly shorten the cooldown time for a skill that you land whenever you come out of it without being discovered. So if you're like in a bush and then you land a skill within 3 seconds of being discovered by the enemy person, you'll get a massive reduction to that skill's cooldown. And the reason this is really good is on characters like Hits or characters like Trunks, where they can come out of a bush and just delete characters. They come out of the bush with this, they're going to be able to not only delete characters, then they'll get all their cooldowns back to be able to do it again super quickly. That's why this backstab skill is so good. It is a massive amount of cooldown reduction on that initial skill. So like for somebody like Trunks, you can initiate the fight with your jump in, and your jump in will basically be back, and then if you get the kill, you also get the reason. So you'll be able to double jump very quickly, and then it just scales very out of hand. And with hit, he can go ahead and get his stagger off very quickly. Or because with hit, what happens is his skill 1 does not reveal him. So with skill 1, it will not trigger this effect because this skill does not, you have to be discovered. Skill 1 does not reveal hit. So if you do skill 1 into skill 2, your skill 2 will be the one that gets the shorter cooldown, which is his stagger, which is his strongest ability. So very strong value you can get out of backstab on certain characters, especially divers. The third skill is one of the most broken skills in the game, and it's limit breaking jump. This will let you use your vanishing step 2 times back to back for the cooldown time on it ends. And the only condition for this is that your vanishing step has to be on cooldown. There is no cooldown on being able to do this. So you can double vanish, then when your vanish comes back, you can double vanish again. So very strong skill, very common on a lot of characters. If you want mobility, if you want to chase down anything, this has super versatile because Vanish Step itself is one of the most versatile things in the game. So extremely strong level 3 card right here. Okay, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and go by role to go ahead and talk about the best cards for people, and then we'll go from there. So to start off for Krillin, you basically always want to take Super Snowball because it's very easy to save safe with Krillin. You don't typically need to take defensive cards. So with Krillin, you just take Super Snowball and you build him full offensively with Super Snowball, Pursuer, and Giant Slayer. The reason for that is because Giant Slayer makes it to where Krillin can even demolish tanks. Super Snowball gives him all the damage that he needs, and then Pursuer will go ahead and trigger with either with Bomb Scatter Shot or just with Bomb and Bomb. And both of those will go ahead and trigger Pursuer, and Pursuer is very strong. It'll add a very massive amount of burst damage to Krillin's combo. You don't typically need to take any other cards on Krillin. The other cards for him are just not needed. That's just the best way to play him, is to play him full damage. Gohan is a character that is best played full defensively because of the way that his kit works and being able to take damage for allies and just be able to make extra durability available to your team. You want to build him full defensively with things like build up, and then taking Guardian Angel so you can take damage for your allies, and then also taking Steel Skin so that you're able to reduce damage every hit, making it very annoying to kill this Gohan. And because of all the utility he has, the damage buff that he gives his allies, him being alive just makes it very annoying for your enemy team. Android 17 is a character that is built the exact same way as Krillin, where you're going to build him for full damage with like Snowball, Giant Slayer, and Pursuer. However, he plays differently as a character, but that doesn't change his build, is the thing. Because Android 17 is able to stay very safe because of his dash and his barrier and his ultimate. You don't really need to build him for defense because he already has a lot of defense in his kit. What he lacks is offense, which is why you build him for full offense. Now moving on to Hit. Hit is a character that is basically entirely offense focused. His whole gimmick is to build line and play offensive with it. And that's why you build him pretty much for full offense. You build him with the only difference with Hit here is that you go Super Snowball still because it is possible to stay safe on Hit and stay alive. But instead of Giant Slayer, you want to take Now You Will Die on him because Hit isn't a bursty character. He's more of a damage over time character. He doesn't typically just delete people. He just does damage to them over time. So you want to take Now Prepare to Die because you'll get more value out of that. And then for his third skill, you want to take Backstab because Backstab will just works perfectly with hits kit and how it's designed. Moving on to Majin Buu. With the Majin Buu, you want to take the blue card, Strategic Escape, because it will help you run away and also decoy. Because with Buu, the main thing is you just want to stay alive. You want to take Strategic Escape and Decoy to be able to run away faster and to stay alive. And then you take Guardian Angel so you can take damage for your allies while you're healing. Those are the best builds for Buu because that allows him to stay alive while healing. And he's almost never going to do damage. You can go for a DPS Buu build, but it's not a very good build at all because he just does not have a lot of damage. But being able to stay alive and just heal, that's his best way. And Frieza, we talked about earlier, is the best way to play him is just to push your towers. So you want to go for things like Gekishin High. Is not good for him because Gekishin High requires you to use skills on towers. Frieza's not a character that has skills to use on towers. The only skill you can really use Frieza on towers is skill 3 because you usually use Zarbon and Midoriya. They have too much of a cooldown to be used on towers. There's no point in doing that. Which is why you don't want to take Gekishin High on him. You just take the Strategic Escape so you can go to run away, Art of Decoy so you can run away. And then for skill 3, you take a defense step because Frieza is very squishy, so having that defense step for that temporary extra burst of survivability helps him out a lot. Now, moving on to the tank role, we're going to talk about Vegeta first. For Vegeta, I would recommend that you guys take Super Snowball because that will give you a massive amount of damage. And because of how tanky Vegeta is one of the hardest tanks to kill, you're able to get that stacked up and use it very effectively. Secondly, I would recommend taking Steel Skin because you're going to be taking a lot of damage. And Steel Skin will reduce every single damage you take. And then for your third skill, you should take the Rush Attack bonus skill because of the fact that Vegeta is not a burst character. He's going to be doing a lot of Rush Attack damage. His skills are very important, but he's not really much of a Pursuer character because you don't want to typically be spamming skills with Vegeta to trigger Pursuer. You want to use your skills more accordingly to the situation, but you're always going to be Rush Attacking because he's a melee character, which is why you take Wicked Warrior. With Zamasu, you just go a full triple green build. You take build up, you take Steel Skin, and you take Guardian Angel. All Zamasu wants to do is take damage for his team and revive and provide utility with his slows. So you don't really typically need to build anything else. And that exact same build is going to be used on Baby. Baby also is just there to take damage for your team and heal your team. He's not there to do damage. He can do damage like temporarily with just his skills, but you don't need to build him for damage. Just build him full defensive, and that's the best build for him. So the exact same build as Zamasu is what you should do on Baby. Cooler is a very interesting character because you can build him like just full offense and just completely wreck through a lobby, or you can build him defensively. I think the best build is a little bit of both. I would say for skill 1, you should take Super Snowball so you can go ahead and just keep stacking up your damage. Skill 2, take Steel Skin, that'll give you your durability. And for skill 3, you really have a lot of options. Take Wicked Warrior for rush attack damage, not a bad option at all. You take Pursuer, also works extremely well with him. Do not take Guardian Angel. Cooler's not the type of tank you want to take Guardian Angel. Defense Step is very good on him. Double Vanish is also very good on him. Those are all options you can take. It all just depends on the game. If you're having a lot of like chase down and you need to be able to double vanish, take the Vanishing Step to go ahead and run away. If you're having a lot of ults that are just destroying you, take Defense Step. And if you just need to be able to chase people down and they're getting away from you constantly, take Pursuer. And if you're constantly just duking it out with people, like maybe you're duking it out with a Khalifa, take Wicked Warrior for the rush attack. It really just depends with that third card slot because that's the one. But for slot 1, Super Snowball, slot 2, Steel Skin. Those are just the 2 things that you want to take. And on that same note, that is the exact same build you want to do on Cell and Khalifa, because all 3 of the top tanks right now, which is these 3, work basically the same as each other with just different tools to do the exact same thing that they do. So that is the exact same build you would want to do on all 3 of the characters here. Now, damage characters are very interesting because obviously we have double the damage characters because there is a role that it's the only role where you have 2 of them. So for damage characters, typically, they all have kind of the same build depending on what kind of their playstyle is. So for burst characters, which is going to be your Gokus, your Trunkses, not your Majus, your Gokus, your Trunkses, your 18s, and your Kale. Anybody else? Nope, that'll be it. So for your burst characters like Goku, Trunks, 18, and Kale, you're going to be taking Super Snowball, Giant Slayer, and Pursuer. That is the best build for them. As a secondary build, if you're not able to get value out of Super Snowball by being able to stay alive, what you want to do is you want to take Flash Lightning with Double Vanish. That'll get you some very good value as well and still give you a lot of burst in. You just have to be very careful with how you use your Vanish to get a damage bonus. And then you want to use the second Vanish usually to get away, but if you're really stomping, you can use it aggressively as well. Now, for sustained damage characters like Bojack, Oob, Piccolo, Gammas, they are gonna be, and a Dabura even to a degree. Their builds all differ very widely, so we're gonna kind of break this down based on each separate character. We can group together Gammas, Bojack, and Piccolo because they play very similarly. They're all kind of like, not as much Gammas actually, just Bojack and Piccolo we're gonna pair together because these two play basically the same way. Is you want to play long range with them. You want to play long range with them. You don't want to be getting too close to your enemies, and you also need tools to save yourself if you get dope. So you don't typically take Super Snowball on either of these characters. You take Easy Life to go ahead and help you survive, and you take Solid Barrier. You take both to go ahead and help you survive the dive characters. And then on your third skill, that's where you'll take something like Pursuer to go ahead and help you do more damage to the enemy. However, if they have a very strong tank, I recommend that you guys take off the barrier for Giant Slayer, because that will help you actually take care of the tank. Otherwise, you're not putting enough damage on for your team. That's the only time that it's kind of situational for them. But that's basically the best build for them is you take Easy Life, and then you take the Giant Slayer or Barrier, and then Pursuer in your third slot. That is the best way to build them. The reason I said the Gammas are a little bit different is because while they do play ranged, because of the way Gamma 2 works, and even just how Gamma 1 skill works, while they are rush attack focused as hell, their skills kind of put them in like melee range. So with them, you don't want to build for playing long range because a lot of the time you'll be playing close range. So with them, you do want to take Super Snowball because it is very easy to manipulate their HP and stay in and out of the fight. So you take Super Snowball for that purpose, but then you want to take things like the Barrier to go ahead and help them survive. And then for your third skill, you choose typically between Double Vanish to go and help you escape, or you can take Pursuer for damage and just chasing down. Those are the best builds for them, is just to go Super Snowball, Barrier at the bare minimum. And then if you're not able to make Super Snowball work, take Flash Lightning. And then for your third skill, you want to take Double Vanish or Pursuer as the best build for the Gammas. Now, moving on to Dabura. Dabura is a very interesting character because he's a burst character, but he's also a sustained damage character. So he's a little bit of both. With Dabura, you want to take Snowball or Flash Lightning. Both are very good for him. And then for his third skill, you want to take Double Vanish because Dabura likes to use his Vanish with the skill 1. So Double Vanish is very strong on him. The second skill is where it gets interesting. If you want to focus the enemy tank, Giant Slayer is 100% a must. But if the enemy tank isn't like the biggest threat, if it's not somebody like a Caulifla or a Cooler, then you can go ahead and take the other one, the Now Prepare to Die, because that will help you just completely assassinate squishies. He does so much damage with that. But that's essentially the very standard Dabura build. He's very similar to the burst characters. He's just slightly different because of how he wants to utilize his Vanish. That same build also applies to Oob because he also wants to leverage his Vanish a lot because Oob's whole gimmick is just dashes. So having Double Vanish on top of his dashes is very strong for him. Flash Lightning or Snowball works very well with that as well. But typically for a second skill, I do recommend that you guys take the Barrier because Oob is at the end of the day a range character you can get dove in. So having the Barrier does give him that extra little bit of security. So for his build, I would recommend going Super Snowball or Flash Lightning depending on if you're able to stay alive, then Barrier, and then Double Vanish. Now, the last character we're going to talk about is going to be Daimagoku. The reason I saved him for last is because he's a very unique character. The way Daimagoku's damage works is very centered around his skill 1, and that's Bomb. The best way to use that is Super Snowball because Super Snowball is just an overall damage buff. So if you are able to use that, that is the best way to go about it. And Daimagoku typically doesn't want to be too deep in the fight. You kind of want to stay far away with your bomb. So you don't need to typically build him for defense. So you kind of just build him full offense from there. You go Super Snowball or Flash Lightning. Then you go into Giant Slayer. And then for your final one, you take Pursuer because he combos his skill 1 with his other skills a lot. So you'll be able to trigger Pursuer very easily and get that extra burst of damage. So he has a very standard offensive build, but I just wanted to mention that you do want to leverage his bomb, which is why you don't build him for defense, because typically you would think because of how melee he is, you would build him for defense, but that's not the case because of how you actually want to play him effectively. But that is basically every character's best build with Divine Cards and every Divine Card explained. I hope this video helps you guys make the best decisions in your games, And with that being said, this is Bison signing out.